Live now. We're live. Hello, I'm John from Broadsheet. You're very welcome to Tomorrow Tonight. We're very honoured to be joined by Dan Boyle in Cork. Good evening, Dan.
John, how are you doing?
Not too bad. Actually, I've had better days. Is a Green Party councillor on Cork City Council, former TD and senator and a Broadsheet columnist. And his column today caused a bit of a stink in latest sexist tripe. Dan wrote today about, I'll just share it with you in 1 second. You can start your defence now, Dan.
Sure. I mean, I suppose it always amuses me on social media and the response columns that people take specific references and they magnify them to what they never were. But it's a comment about generalities. I wasn't talking about swearing allegiance to our new alien female overlords or anything like that. I was just saying that a better blend and a more involvement of women would only be good for our politics, and our politics are bad because it doesn't exist. It's a simple enough premise.
I know, you poor thing, Dan. I think you were horribly misunderstood. It was regarding Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, who has been appointed Director General of the World Trade Organization.
Yeah, a position once held by Peter Sutherland of this parish.
Yes, indeed. Top of the globalist tree. The presence, you point out that the presence of the European Commission, the European Central Bank, along with the recent US Treasury Secretary, that's Yellen, isn't
it? Janet Yellen, yeah.
Yeah, form a potent collection of influencers who will influence how the global economy is likely to develop or not, which is great. But I think you came a cropper here. What more women in decision-making roles would do is bring about a better sensibility. Women tend to be more patient, tend to be more likely to take longer-term views, see a bigger picture. Women, as a rule, are more likely to practice a politics that is less confrontational, more cooperative, or more political. Women are more likely to do than men are, is to reprioritize the political agenda, relocating resources to issues that have a wider societal impact. Absolutely.
This is after I said that Margaret Thatcher was worse than any man, and that Theresa May was utterly incompetent. But
yeah, well, you see, I would totally agree with that. But even that in today's climate is tendentious stuff. Very good column. That's your defence, though, Dan.
Well, got a reaction, I suppose. That's part of what it's about.
It certainly did. How are things in Cork?
Well, it's not too bad. I suppose that there are shoots of light around the place, so it's they're interesting times. It's hard to put a finger on anything in particular, but you have the local papers there amongst everything else.
Indeed. I'm just getting them up now. We've had a Cloudflare issue on the site all day, so
okay.
We can't
not Facebook, I hope, which is one of the stories that are featuring.
Yeah, I know.
Facebook and its attitude in Australia.
Well, funny enough, we were trying to move from Google to another advertising platform, but our content wasn't suitable. So in the meantime, from transferring our files or something has occurred, and we're in this kind of position. But I actually got the papers up tonight. There's a code that I could put in, and they're visible now, but they weren't visible last night. So I'll just get them up here now. Forgive all this, Dan. That's it. Okay. Irish Examiner. Ulster Bank exited a new financial crisis.
Well, I suppose this has taken 10 years to happen. Ulster Bank, because it's part of what used to be the Royal Bank of Scotland group, now they call themselves NatWest. It didn't actually get benefit from the bank guarantee scheme 10 years ago, but it suffered just as much as any of the Irish-based banks in terms of the effect on its loan book in particular, and other losses. I think the subsidy that Royal Bank of Scotland had to put in is something in the region of 55 billion in the years since. So they're writing off their Republic of Ireland operation. They're going to have a smaller Northern Ireland-based operation, and there's going to be a lot of toing and froing with the people who have loans with Ulster Bank, and they can switch and they probably should do them before they're sold to a vulture fund, which is one of the possible outcomes of what would happen in this situation.
Yeah, I think that's inevitable, isn't it? I mean, they're already swirling over the corpse. Ulster Bank, yeah. Why didn't they ditch 10 years ago? I don't understand.
Well, it's maybe a lot of people thought there was an opportunity in the post-collapse situation, and that just surviving might have been an opportunity to thrive and make profits and the like. But I mean, however bad we've had it, Royal Bank of Scotland really was a basket case, and was one of the worst banks in the world in terms of what happened in terms of its assets and its standing. And they're getting rid of one of the elements that were one of its weakest links.
Story down here that at the bottom here, I don't know if you can see that. Can you? It's about Mary Robinson. She's hit out at the lack of dignity for survivors of the mother and baby home.
It's something that in a core context with the existence of the Bessborough convent that we're very much aware of, and as poor as the report was into the mother and child homes, I think there's going to be a whole series of events nationwide about how we respond to that part of our history, because it's still not been responded to properly, and there are too many victims that bear the scars, and it's hard to know whether it can ever be responded to properly. But it's a residue of an Ireland that treated women in particular and young women appallingly.
Probably not the best timing for Mary Robinson to speak out on dignity of women.
Well, people might, she obviously was made a fool of in the Dubai situation, but she's admitted that. So it's I suppose everyone has mistakes in their lives and in their political decisions, and that's one of hers.
Well, I mean, it's taken her 2 years to tell us this was a horrible mistake.
Yeah,
when it was revealed, she did defend Haya.
She did, and it took her. It took more secret videos to be released to provoke reaction. So yes, it's less than ideal, but it's at least it's an honest admission that didn't exist 2 years ago. But, and maybe I suspect she did genuinely believe that this was a headstrong young woman who was just being difficult, rather than being the victim of a kind of an approach to women in that type of society where she wasn't being allowed particular freedoms, and that seems to be the case.
Yeah, there's probably a full show we could have about this. I mean, it's been an interesting story, pretty much ignored. The Irish Times, RT, they'd interviewed her in the last 2 years. Nothing, no reference to it, even nothing.
Well, the BBC are running fairly strongly on it, and the actual Latifa videos have been run on the BBC, and the seeking of responses of Mary Robinson has been BBC.
Yeah.
So we still get that spillover effect from the British media, I think.
Well, I think in terms of, I don't think she was ever the Mary Robinson that people assumed she was. The Mary President Mary that they promoted wasn't really her. I mean, I think she's a very detached member of the elite, and the level of detachment is almost frightening.
Well, I think that depends whether you're talking about kind of people's socialization skills or their political opinions. It's
no, I mean, I don't think she had that common touch that it was felt that she had. I mean, I think that her campaign team, Fergus Finlay, Owen Harris, etc., built a person that really wasn't who she was. I mean, she was.
Well, I suppose that's the nature of political campaigning, but she may not have been the person that Patrick Flynn portrayed her to be either. And I think she benefited from that kind of
certainly
perception. No, it didn't help. It didn't help. Well, it helped her, but it certainly didn't help anyone who wanted to get across an alternative vision of who she was and what she might be.
Yeah. I mean, she's obviously fantastically bright and all that, but trying to cover the story, we've been trying to cover it on the site over the last 2 years, quite got a lot of pushback. I mean, she has a big following, Mary, and she can do no wrong almost. Last year, she said that climate deniers, or what she called climate deniers, were evil. She said that they were evil. Not that they were wrong, but that they were evil.
Well, it's evil is a strong word, but it's but deliberately ignorant, I would say. That's a different kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you like, that's much nicer than. I mean,
it's a different connotation. It's a different connotation.
Sure,
but evil means kind of evil has a physical manifestation. Yeah, so
it means probably kidnapping your daughter, and that's pretty. Anyway, sorry. It's been a long day. The Echo, 12 million cocaine haul, Dan.
Yeah, I hadn't realised that. Only around the corner from where I live, and no one told me.
I'd like to know anyway.
I think it's gone. I think it's gone. But the man being pictured there is quite interesting. He's actually a Cork County councillor.
Oh yeah.
And he's been a councillor since 1967. He's in his 54th year as an elected public representative. So he's obviously in his 80s, and he may have the longest tenure of unbroken political service in the country.
That's amazing. That's great. What age would he be?
I suspect he would be mid-80s, I'd imagine. Yeah, mid-80s.
Yeah. God, this year I was born. I'm going to go back to the Irish Sun. I think that, and the Irish Daily Mail is going to come in. Daily Telegraph. Did you get a chance to look at that too?
I just pointing out the fact that the NASA vehicle has landed on Mars, which is significant. It's I actually saw a tweet by Gary Kasparov, who was speaking glowingly about it, making the fair point that that Trump, for instance, made this thing about having a space force, but where we've kind of really fallen down over the last number of decades is space exploration, because there's so much we still don't know about what's out there, and this has got more value for humanity and what potential is out there than anything else, rather than the whole Star Wars idea and people with Jewish space lasers whatever they're doing.
Yeah. I'm a bit disappointed they could have brought their colour film up there.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's
60s retro kind of.
It's 3 years to get there, so it probably takes a lot of the colour quality away. Who knows?
Okay. Get tough with EU on Northern Ireland, Frost told.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that David Frost, who's got a misfortune of being named after someone far more famous than he is, but he was a negotiator for the UK in the Brexit negotiations. I think it's a calculated snub to make him the representative for UK with the EU. It's obviously a continuation of war by other means. So it means that as far as the UK is concerned, they don't want to let go. That they're still looking for the perfect Brexit.
Gove didn't really work out, did he?
Oh well, he's. Maybe he's worked out that there's a role for experts after all. Who knows?
The Facebook, delete Facebook.
I think this is fascinating. It's there's two things about the Facebook model. First is that it claims not to be a publisher. It is, and secondly, it insists that it shouldn't have to pay for content. Although anyone that uses its platform are deemed to be the publishers, and any content that they provide is suddenly deemed to be Facebook's by the reason that they're using the Facebook platform. And it's just full of inconsistencies. And I suspect Facebook realized that if what the Australians intend doing catches on throughout the world and they have to pay for news content, that their model will be severely undermined, and that they'll have outgoings that they never intended and will certainly eat into their profits. But I find it amazing that Australia is the country that's having this fight with Facebook, because Australia has an extremely right-wing government. and it also has a very poor media. The media is very dominated by Rupert Murdoch and his titles. So we have a right-wing government trying to improve for the wrong reasons, but for the right outcome, the profitability of newspapers that are owned by someone who isn't a very good respecter of an open media anyway, taking on a high-tech giant who have been coasting on things that they should be challenged on in any case.
Indeed, and it'll affect Ireland. I mean, they bought the huge Bank of Ireland site in Bridge.
Yeah.
They haven't moved in there yet, have they? Because
I think it's a contract. They have a 7-year contract. So yeah,
a huge campus there, and
it's the IB. It's the Boyle Bridge site. The IB site.
Yes, and they haven't fully moved in there, and then you've got the knock-on effect with Twitter. You see, I think that whole landscape is being radically changed, and
it is.
Ireland, we were the kind of the basket we have of them all there in Dublin.
There was even kind of the strange situation where Bill Gates, who's not a disinterested observer, given his company provides operating systems for computers on which the internet operates on many computers throughout the world, he was saying today that Trump should be brought back onto social media.
I was talking to William Campbell last night, and I said that Twitter is clearly, they're not built now for profit, or they're not interested in profit for the next few years. Isn't it? They're reconfiguring themselves, because if they kick Trump off, Twitter has become a less, lively place, a less and more kind of interesting place even, and they've lost 80 million followers of his who probably won't go back to Twitter.
Yeah, and Parler is back up on some platform, but they're interesting times. But I think the whole world of social media is going to change because of what's happening in Australia, and it'll be interesting to see what the developments are.
Totally, and also the fact that they were censoring, they were being editors, not a platform. They were acting as censors, and
well, what they were doing is that anything that was deemed newsworthy, or in fact anything that was an update on anything, was deemed news in Australia. So everything was blacked. So I saw the World Wildlife Fund complaining that they weren't allowed to update their site because someone in Facebook decided it was news. There must be hundreds of sites in Australia that are experiencing similar inadvertent censorship. Obviously.
Yeah, and it'll definitely affect Broadsheet, I guess, in some way. I missed a few papers there. The Independent, inadequate PPE at the NHS workers at risk.
Well, it's a long-running story. It's one of the variables in the COVID story. Part of it's vaccines, part of it is PPE, part of it is tracing, and I'm not sure any country anywhere is getting the combination of all the factors right, but some are doing better than others in particular areas. Yeah.
Do you feel things are turning in terms of?
Well, the numbers are certainly reducing. We're talking less than 800 people now at the height in the first week of January, just immediately after Christmas. We were hitting 8,000 at one stage in terms of new cases. There's still a considerable number of deaths, several dozen every day. There are less people being detained in hospital, less people being treated in hospital. And it's all about the school opening now on March 1st. It looks like it's going to be leaving certs and maybe up to second class in primary school, and they'll see if that works for 3 or 4 weeks and whether it affects the R numbers in any way. It's something, I've seen it with my granddaughter, actually. There was an interesting article in the Examiner yesterday by Dr. Niamh Lynch, who's a pediatrician working out of CUH. And she was pointing out that the mental health effect on children is being shown in children resorting more to silences, and silence in a young person and children is obviously a very bad sign, but it's also something that's impossible to interpret as regards to how serious it is in the physical or the mental, psychological makeup of the child at a very important time in their life. So
Right.
I've always been in favor of trying to keep the schools open as long as possible and getting them opened as early as possible. And I'd like to see them back as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Have you seen any the advantages of homeschooling in anyone? I've heard sort of good reports of, you know, kids who obviously don't like school are enjoying.
Well, it is hit and miss. I think RT has done well with some of their programming. I think BBC has done well with some of its programming. It depends on the ability of the parents to devote time. I know with my daughter, they're talking about 4 hours solid a day, just on the one child, with what they get in emails from the local school and fitting them in with what is being broadcast on various television channels. And it depends on the capacity of the school and the ability of school to provide the kind of outreach materials. But it is hit and miss. Some families don't have the parental skills of people with parental skills. Some schools don't have the resources to engage in the outreach, and until kids go back to school in a more full way, you're going to get more intense inequality as regards to the type of stimulus young people are experiencing and how they can come through the other side of all this.
Yeah, and how are your family doing? How's your family?
They're not too bad. I mean, I've only one grandchild who's school going. She's 8 years old now, and her two siblings are 2 years old and 9 months. So 2-year-old in particular, she can't understand the concept of homeschooling because she thinks it's all a game and she wants to participate herself in it. And so that's another added parenting problem. And I suspect thousands of families are experiencing something similar across the country.
Yeah.
There's both pathos and bathos in these kind of situations, but it'll be looked at. It'll be looked back on sometimes fondly, but obviously a very, very strange time in all of our lives.
Yeah, really. Just so weird, isn't it? I mean, each day is kind of like folds into the other. And Dan, thank you very much.
Have
a great weekend. Are there Zoom meetings?
Well, there are no Green Party crisis meetings over the weekend anyway, so that's a good sign.
Okay.
And have a look at walks instead.
Have a look at your misogyny, Dan, please.
I will indeed. I'll call to my mother and ask for forgiveness.